The following talk was given at the Insight Meditation Center in Redwood City, California. Please visit our website at audiodharma.org.
No, there are distractions, but something. Yeah. Anyway, but, it's very nice to be here and to sit with you. In the announcements, this retreat was mentioned with Andrea, and I just wanted to say something briefly about it. Sayadaw U Tejaniya is a teacher from Burma who has become probably one of the most popular and respected Asian teachers, who's kind of part of our tradition, who many of the senior teachers here in America go to study with him, and he's a very wonderful man. I met him once in Burma, and one of the ways that his teaching is characterized is that he's very interested in helping people to develop continuous awareness, continuous mindfulness. Too low? You can't hear. Continuous awareness, continuous mindfulness in their life. Is that better? No? Maybe the unit isn't working. I wonder if someone could. Oh, can you hear? It's not coming through. Are the? They are. Yes. So okay, I should probably talk more. Is that working now? Is that? A little more volume. Okay.
You talk very soft.
Oh, yeah. I know. How's that? Better?
Yeah.
A little better. Okay. So this teacher, just to say briefly, this teacher U Tejaniya, some people find his approach very refreshing, because a lot of the Vipassana tradition, the mindfulness tradition that has come down to us from Asia has been focused on retreat practice. So, kind of going into seclusion with other people and doing intensive meditation, and which is a wonderful way of practicing, is beautiful, and I hope everyone has a chance to experience retreat practice. And most of us here probably live in the world and have jobs, have families. And what about the 99% of the time that we're not on retreat, or we're not meditating formally? So that's the focus of that sort of, I think it's called daily life practice or everyday practice. So anyway, yeah, it's a very nice approach. And as you heard, we have a community fair tonight, which is a chance to just find out a little bit about all the different groups and activities that happen here at IMC, apart from the formal practice of sitting and hearing a talk and that sort of thing. So in the spirit of that, I thought I would do my bit and talk about practicing in community, practicing with other people. One of the, maybe you could call it the beautiful paradoxes of this practice, is that it's a somewhat of a solitary practice that's focused, in a way it's focused inward. We sit quietly, we close our eyes, we don't speak. And yet we do it with other people. And there's a certain power. I think everyone here somehow knows that, or else, you wouldn't be here. There's a certain power to sitting with other people in silence and practicing with other people. And I was just thinking about this a little bit during the sit, that I don't know if you've had a chance to notice this really, or really feel this, but there can be a very sweet bond that comes from practicing in silence with other people. That's different than if we all just kind of had a conversation, or we broke up and had a conversation, and which is nice too, which is very nice, can be very nice. But to be in silence with others is special. There's something a little bit unusual about it. And there's an intimacy, there can be a bond that's created. In times of my practice when I've been on retreat, either a day-long retreat or a week-long retreat or sometimes longer retreats, you really get to know other people in a way that you wouldn't know if you used words. You know the way the person, the way they breathe, sitting next to you, the way they move, the way they shift, how they sigh if they're getting a little bored or something. Or when I lived in the Zen monastery, the floor of the monastery was a kind of wooden floor that, I don't know, I guess it was the way it was built, but it was very easy to make a lot of noise on it. It had certain creaks and but so the practice, they were very strict about walking silently and quickly. So how do you walk quickly and silently on a floor that's really creaky? And it was just this riddle. And I remember I was serving, I was one of the servers for lunch, and everyone has a different job, and I was one of the servers. And in Zen, there's an elaborate way of serving 60 or 70 people in minutes. And the whole lunch is served, is eaten. There's even seconds. And then you eat your seconds. And then the bowls are cleaned and washed and put away, and it all happened, I think, in 6 minutes. You think, how can that happen in 6 minutes? Well, one of the ways it happens is that the servers move pretty quickly around, and then it's sort of this choreographed way of you bow and you serve and you serve the person. And so I was a new student, and then all the meditators, all the monks are sitting around the perimeters of the room. And then as servers, we're walking, maybe 6 or 7 of us, and we're kind of walking in the middle and serve 2 people at a time, and then bow, and then go to the next people and bow. And then as a new person, you kind of think that everyone has to be just watching me, right? They're watching the serve. What else are they going to do? They're just sitting there. And so there's that self-consciousness. And then, because the meals are so quickly, you have to walk quickly. And silently. And it's like, okay, and you're carrying like big pot of soup. And so then one time the abbot, you always serve the abbot first, and you're going to bow. And then one time, after I served the abbot, he called me over like this. He's like, and I thought, oh, maybe he's going to be, has singled me out for a special teaching or some, as my mind was delusions of grandeur. And I went over and he went a little closer, and then he said, please walk more quietly. I was like, ooh, hope nobody heard that. But over time, it was very interesting that there was this way that the feet sort of wake up. And the only way I can describe it is this kind of awareness comes to the feet and all the different muscles in the feet, and you sort of learn how to move and how to kind of harmonize with the floor, with the timing, and over time it just comes together. It's interesting. And that was a long way of saying that I felt I could tell who was walking by the sound that they would make, and whether it was like the clop, 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 or or just the different things. So we sort of get to know each other in community practice. One of the things aspects of the teaching, of the Dharma teaching, meditation practice, that was surprising to me is that community is given a very important place in the practice, to the extent that when someone in Asian cultures sort of formally, I guess you could call it, maybe it's a conversion ceremony, or it's called a refuge ceremony. So it's take refuge. It's a way of sort of marking one's. It's sort of a way of a public way, in a way of saying that one is practicing the Buddha way, And so there are three called treasures, or three gems that we take refuge in: Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. And they're equal, and they're given equal. So Buddha is, one way of understanding Buddha is as the historical Buddha. Another way is this is the awakened, the awakened, the capacity to awaken that each of us has, or our own awakened heart, is Buddha. The word in Pali means awake, wakefulness. Dharma is what we awaken to. So Dharma is sometimes called the teaching, the truth, or kind of how things are, reality. So the Buddha is awakened to the Dharma. And then there's Sangha. And Sangha is the Pali word for sort of like for community, or for community of beings who are dedicated to waking up. So Buddha, Dharma, Sangha. So Sangha is considered very important. So important that we cannot awaken. This is the understanding that we have. We cannot awaken, we cannot find ourselves without the help of others. As solitary or as sort of individual as meditation practice may seem, this is about some kind of inner experience or inner transformation. That's just a partial, there's something partial about that we practice together, we awaken together, we need each other. And so I love this image of, in Zen they have of, I think the Japanese is translated as only a Buddha together with a Buddha. So it's like, sometimes we can't see our own nature. We can't see our own light. But other people see us. Other people can see who we are. And we can see other people in a way that they can't see themselves. So it's like, I point to you, and then you point to me. And then it's like, oh, that's what we're practicing here. So it's something that comes alive in community with each other. It's said this is one of the reasons that when the Buddha created the monastic order of Buddhist monks, the monks were not, and still are not in our tradition, are not allowed to keep food overnight. And one of the reasons, or one of the consequences of that, is that a monk needs to go out and ask for food every day. So needs to relate to people, needs to connect to the community, to connect to the people who they're teaching. And so in Thailand, in these countries, it says that if a monk, if your practice is good, you'll be supported. People will support you. And people will be so inspired by their practice that they want to offer them food and sustain them for another day. And so there's this kind of interdependence or connection. You might have heard this quote about, I think it was Ananda who said to the Buddha, who maybe was so inspired, I'm paraphrasing, who was so inspired by the community and practicing with friends, with others, and said to the Buddha, I think that having spiritual friends is a really big part of this path. And the Buddha said, no, Ananda, you're wrong. Having spiritual friends is the entirety of this path. It's the entirety of this path. Having people who can see us, who can sort of hold our vow, hold our intention to be awake. That's what it means to be in community. And then I think we also know or have some experience of any time that other people are involved with anything, things can get complicated, And it's like there's something about, especially in practice communities, where that friction between people is said to sort of polish us. It's like the image I was given at the Zen monastery was like what is it, like stones polishing each other in the river, or sometimes people say like you're in a cement mixer. Sometimes it can feel like that. And so hopefully you're not just knocking into each other. We're not just sort of banging our heads together. We're polishing each other. And there's something beautiful about that when we have conflict, where we have conflict is a place we can meet. It is a place we can connect. And hopefully take the relationship to a deeper level. I was just at IRC, which is our meditation retreat center. So this is IMC, and we have IRC, which is in Santa Cruz. And it was very sweet. We had a teacher, of the teacher training group that I'm in, and the teacher training had just finished. We had our last sort of new teacher meeting there. And anyway, there was a little conflict. And the conflict, I won't spare you the details, but someone had, as happened in these communities, and someone, it turns out inadvertently I hurt someone's feelings by a friend who lives there and wanted to sit with me at lunch. And I sort of hesitated because this other meeting was happening. And anyway, there was, and then I was thinking about that night. I thought, I wonder if she, that was a little, I wonder if she, so I sent a little message and I said, I hope that was okay, that we didn't have lunch together or something. And then she wrote back something like, I might hate you now, but I know everything's impermanent. And I thought, oh no. And then I saw her at breakfast. One of the nice things is when you're in community, especially if you're living together, even if it's just temporarily living together, you have a lot of chances to see each other. And so I saw her the next morning at breakfast, and I, made a point of connecting, and we hugged, and talked about it, agreed to talk about it more. And so sometimes, as painful as conflicts can be, they're an opportunity to go deeper or be more honest with each other in a certain way. And so there's so many benefits and blessings of community. When we're in community with others, I'm sure you've experienced this, even just with living with other people at home. Other people become our mirrors, and reflect us back to us. And we start to see, whether they tell us or whether we just see the impact of how we are on them, where it's like this real-time feedback mechanism. And so it's an opportunity for this going deeper with others. Others can be a mirror for us. I think there's so much learning that happens through peers. It's said that children learn more through their peers than they do through their teachers. Or I know I have two daughters, and they're just kind of starting out in school, but they'll come back and it's like, where did you, with limericks or with different things that they've picked up, and it's like, I'm pretty sure the teacher didn't. that wasn't part of the preschool curriculum or something. But we learn from each other. We watch each other, and I've been so inspired by people I've practiced with, by other teachers I've taught with, by when I've being on retreat or being just in community, inspired by how sincerely others can practice in the face of difficulties, in the face of challenges. One of the important but sometimes unacknowledged values of sitting with others is that it turns out that it's much easier to sit with other people than it is to sit by ourselves. I mean, for many people, not for everyone, but for many of us. I would include myself. I think part of it, this is not so glamorous, but part of it is the sort of peer pressure. It's like, it's more so in Zen, where you're not supposed to move at all, and then if nobody else is moving, you just can't. You just kind of feel like and what's amazing is you come up to that level of the stillness of the people around you. I think this is a human. What are they? Isn't that so with Olympic athletes? Like if one record has been broken, if there's just an awareness and consciousness that something is possible, then it makes other things seem more possible. So I don't know if it was the 5-minute mile or whatever, someone will know about those. Once one record is kind of shattered, maybe it makes it easier to, not that we have to be Olympic meditators or anything like that. And the other thing is just the feeling of sitting with others. And sometimes I'm inspired not so much by the silence around me, but I'm inspired by the emotion. If anyone has ever sat on a retreat, or even a day-long retreat, often there will be at least one person, sometimes more, who are really crying. They may be grieving, they may be very emotional about something. And, one of the aspects of community of Sangha is it's a safe place, just like meditation is a safe place, to experience whatever it is we happen to be experiencing. So there'll be people who are going through that process, crying, and far from being a distraction or something, I find it incredibly moving when I'm sitting, and it's sort of, there's something that that opens my heart when I feel that others are going through difficulty and are able to express it, And so it's a beautiful gift that we give each other to sort of hold that space. When we're here, we're really holding a space for each other. One of the other teachings for me about Sangha and about what it may mean to take refuge in Sangha, to go for refuge in community, was when one of our beloved Sangha members passed away. Some of you might know or would remember if you were practicing here a few years ago, Victor Medina, who was just such a fixture of this community and selflessly just was he lived close to here and he just came here all the time, and the way that he took refuge in this community through his illness, his cancer, and how people just the beautiful way that people offered themselves for him and came to his house and sat with him, and it was really, and I could just see how much joy and how much strength that he got from being able to not only practice with this community and live with this community, but also die in this community. And it's not a community that is afraid of death or wants to sort of, sort of pretend something about it or keep it. There was very this honesty and this willingness to be witness with him as he went through this process, and as we all will, and just as this great teaching that he offered us. So for me, that was, I just thought, wow, what a blessing to be with people who can hold that and who can, and not that it was easy, or not for me, it was very painful, but. I told this story we had a volunteer night a few nights ago, and it's something that always comes up when I think about community or being together, helping each other. One time, one of my teachers was asked in this kind of public sort of Dharma combat or Dharma encounter. He was asked by the student, "How can I help others?" And Mel, the teacher, said, "Forget about others, help yourself." And the student said, "Okay, how can I help myself?" And then without skipping a beat, the teacher said, "Take care of others." This what can sometimes seem like this very important and very clear line between self and other, between inside and outside. Through practice, through mindfulness, through just showing up for ourselves and for others, sometimes that starts to get softer or start to dissolve. I think a lot of the boundaries that, so much of this practice is about being willing to sit at our boundaries, to sit with our limits, to sit at the boundaries of where we don't want to cross, what we don't want to feel, what we don't want to face, and just to be with that, and just to be with those lines, with mindfulness, with a lot of compassion, a lot of care. And what can often happen is those boundaries start to seem not so solid or not so important or not so. So something can open up, and the more we can fully experience ourselves and understand ourselves, the more we can be with others in a beautiful way, the more we can understand others. And so something we encounter in another person is like, oh yeah, I know that in myself, and I know what you're going through. And so I'm supposed to end right now, but I just want to say one more thing, because we have very, very fun and important things to do. Sometimes one of the ways that I think about how this practice can unfold is going from being, and I'm speaking about myself, my experience, being very preoccupied with myself and me, my experience, my problems, my this, that, to being more open, more willing to be vulnerable, more willing to be changed and impacted by the world, and formed by the world, and open to others. And then there can be a way, and I think we all have had these moments where both self and other can fall away. And there's this, in Zen, sometimes this is called helping with no idea of, no thought of helping. So it's like that. The classical Zen story is how a parent adjusts their child's blanket in the night. So if you're kind of sleeping near your kids and you wake up for some reason and your child's, they're cold, and you just kind of pull the blanket over them. There's not a lot of thought that goes into it. It's not looking around, did anybody see me do this great thing? It's just, it's a natural response. So this is the kind of, this appropriate, this immediate response before thinking. Some of you may have seen this. There was an article in the newspaper, in the New York Times, a few months ago about a incident that happened on the George Washington Bridge. If you're familiar with New York City, you know the George Washington Bridge. It's similar to the Golden Gate Bridge, this huge bridge, a lot of traffic every day. And sadly, every year, a lot of suicides on the bridge. And so it profiled this man who rides his bike across the bridge every day. And it turns out that he's from the Dominican Republic. He's a doorman in Manhattan, and he lives in New Jersey. This bridge goes between New Jersey and Manhattan. And so he rides his bicycle every day to work, and he's a father, and he's, a regular guy. And he saw something strange. He saw a little dog that was kind of tied up. And then he looked over, and then he saw a young guy who was like in his early 20s, 19 or 20, sort of pacing back and forth. And he was over the rail, there's a sidewalk and then there's a rail, and then he was over on the side where you shouldn't be. And so this person, the bicyclist, stopped his bicycle, and then he said, well, I gotta go see what's going on. And so he went over, and he also went over the rail, and there was, onto this ledge area. And then he could see that the person looked very troubled. And he sort of held his hands out like this to show him that he had, nothing in. He just wanted to talk to him, and they asked him the other, what did you say? And he said, he couldn't remember, but it was something like, don't do it. We love you, my heart. And as he said, my heart, he reached out and grabbed the guy, and in a sort of bear hug, and one hand was holding the rail, one hand was holding the kid, the young man. And and he said it was like in a second, because he didn't want to, he just wanted to do it really quickly, and just in a second he just grabbed him. And what was so moving to me, that was moving, but what was moving was he said afterwards, as he was holding the boy, the young man, there was a moment where he could see that his delusion started to dissipate. And then once he could see, he said he came to reality. And once the young man felt reality, he started crying and crying and crying and crying and crying. And just this torrent of emotion, this torrent of, you can imagine all the emotions that for me was, that he finally felt safe, that he could feel this, now he was safe, now he was being held, and he could feel what was there and let himself experience that. And so for me, in a way, this is what community, this person, in that moment, the wakefulness to see this other person as part of his community, as not separate from him. And he's like, no, and held him. And so I think in some form or another, that's what community is. That's what we're offering for each other. And that's what community can be. And yeah, maybe that's a good place to stop. And I hope that IMC, I hope that this place, this community, and I hope that your practice will be a gift not only for yourself in making a safe container to feel and experience everything, all the aspects of who we are, but then that's a beautiful gift that we give to others, to be a safe person, to be a safe community for others to go through what they need, what we need to go through in order to wake up together. So I thank you very much. I thank you for being here, and I hand it over now to Hillary, who's going to talk a little bit about ways to plug in and connect a little bit more into this community. You might be surprised by all the different things that happen here that sometimes can be behind the curtains. So thank you, Hillary.